I'm going to show you a video, and what I leave on here isn't going to be circulated most likely. What this kid left on here already has 4,517 comments. This is not the first time that I've told him these things, but he either doesn't, he doesn't read the comments, think about the comments, or see the comments. Because a lot of the things I leave on the DARPA internet also fall to the bottom of the stack. Because divisive measures are in place and no one is concerned about such things. Especially those of you who aren't experiencing the censorship tactics, the patently fascist censorship tactics. Fascism is what it is. And it's because you're not doing the right thing and you don't know what you're talking about, so you're not censored online. If you did, you would be. It's pretty fucking simple. Let's see if this will still work. Became a corporation in 1871 when the Organic Act established the District of Columbia, period. 1913 marks when citizens became debt slaves, comma. This is when the Federal Reserve was established under the pretense of being both voluntary and temporary, period. Now, I can say things like this, and most of you are never going to look into any of it. And if you knock out a superficial Google search, in most cases, it's going to lie to you. It's going to tell you that America is not a corporation. And it doesn't matter if, something's in all capital letters, because that definitely doesn't denote a corporation. And yet, any major document having to do with your name is going to be in all capital letters, because you're considered a corporation, because you consented into all this garbage. An example would be the fact that if you live in, the boundary of quote-unquote America, the United States, respectively, you're a citizen. And because these things exist, it's a phony jurisdiction in place to subjugate the masses, which means all currency became debt-based. 1913 marks when this started rolling out. Is the what you would consider greenbacks, promissory notes, currency, coin, cash, or, you could think in a digital format, unfortunately, which is something that should not exist. But is any of it backed by a silver or a gold standard? Fuck no. Because what I'm talking about is true. It does reflect reality. And you and I are quite literally the value. Which also speaks to what this guy's complaining about in a number of ways. Also appreciate that the UK and America, crudely speaking, are both the two countries that people would think of, superficially speaking, because all countries are corporations. But both of them helped establish the earthly abomination, the absolutely ridiculous golden calf that is thought of as Israel. And it's also in a landmass now, unfortunately, and technically that's Palestine. It's always been Palestine, because it's the land of Canaan, having to do with Semitic blood. Not what you would think of as Israelis, which means this will probably also be censored, especially on TikTok, because TikTok is the worst of the bunch in terms of fascism, if you haven't figured that much out. Now this will be dressed up as either, on TikTok these days, something along the lines of they're challenging my integrity, my authenticity, and or they'll tell me that I just knocked out a hate speech for telling you something you're not supposed to know. Recommending, urging, goading you is what I'm really doing to look into things instead of buying into them, because superficial people repeat superficial slop, which reassures that the propaganda is circulated. That's a problem. That's a red flag. Not something bad pun. So let's leave this on here. And I also left, that's the wartime flag of the District of Columbia behind you. Not that, Billy Zane fucking cares. Bad jokes. Let's see if this will work. Here's the video in question. If it plays.
Say this on TikTok. Our government has officially and retired. Our government has officially.
And I should also mention, he just said our government. You and I work for the corporation. It's not our corporation. It's not our government. And nobody sensible would say our government in the first place. It's just as good as saying, my taxes, da-da-da-da-da. You mean the money that was stolen from you and is technically unconstitutional, but the Republic doesn't exist anymore because the Republic fell during the Civil War and was finalized in 1871. Nothing is for the people, by the people. which means you're only reinforcing a phony jurisdiction in place to subjugate the masses. No one sensible would say our government.
Our government has officially passed a bill that will see that we pay for the health care and retirement pensions for all IDF soldiers currently in and also already retired. This is going to be better and higher quality than that of our own soldiers. You cannot make this stuff up, and it will be funded by you.
They're not our soldiers. They're corporate property, which typically speaking you would think of as government property, because that's what you sign up to be. Under, another phony jurisdiction, some doublespeak. When you enlist and or you go in as an officer, having already achieved those ranks, allegedly, even though that's also absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, assume what you will, but what I'm talking about makes sense if you think about it.
On top of that, because they're going to be taking care of all the money that was previously being spent on them by the Israeli government, now gets to go to the citizens of Israel, which means they get free health care. You can't make this up. This is ridiculous. And we have this all the while people in our own country don't have health care, aren't being taken care of, and we have homeless veterans. And we are actively paying for all of another country's. Can't make this stuff up. There's only one, when it's all about solutions, there's only one solution that I can think of at this current moment. I'm going to put up on the screen because I can definitely not say this on TikTok. Our government has officially...
And he's catering to censorship. Fuck it. Say it. The point's to challenge these things. You cater to censorship, you promote fascism. It's not a fucking complicated thought. Now, if you want to understand why these things are coming together the way they're coming together and why this all is what it is, same difference. America is the bottom of the trilateral city-states. That's what the District of Columbia represents, as symbolized by the Washington Monument. That's the military-industrial complex having to do with, our soldiers. The government property. I mean, the corporate property. The military might. And I want to stress, this is the lowest aspect of the trilateral city-states, which is why the debt slaves in this respective landmass, the 50 states, pay for this shit. We're the bottom of the barrel, one of the biggest testing beds out there. Also appreciate America's a crown colony. It's a vassal state under the crown. Others out there who are happen to be vassal states are Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, just to name a few. Now, the middle of the trilateral city-states is Roma. Technically, the Vatican is the city-state, and that's the Catholic Church and social control. That's the middle of this 3-tier cake, if you will, or sandwich, however you want to think of it. Trinity. This is what governs damn near everything in our realm. This is why wars were fought, why they were planned out and rolled out. And people don't understand this. Now keep in mind, the Vatican also is symbolized by an obelisk. I want you to look up the names of this obelisk. I already mentioned the Washington Monument and the District of Columbia at the bottom. Now look up the Vatican and look up the obelisk that symbolizes the middle of the trilateral city-states. The top of the food chain, that's the UK. That's where the money goes, where the money flows. This is all about currency. This is where your unconstitutional taxes go. Part of it. It's known as the city. This is a city-state again. And it's also known as the crown because it is affiliated with that family, which isn't royal. It's a banking financial district. It's the banking financial district, which is why you don't hear this come up. It's a big fucking deal. And it is symbolized by an obelisk known as Cleopatra's Needle. These 3 obelisks represent the trilateral city-states. This is what's going on, but the best part is the people who are pulling our strings having to do with all this shit are the same people who let you use the DARPA internet and trained you to carry a cell phone and granted you access to free social media. These are all red flags. These are the same people. What was I going to rattle off? Oh, that spoon-fed you BlackRock and Vanguard. which is the only reason kids talk about BlackRock and Vanguard. Because if you're talking about BlackRock and Vanguard, you're not talking about the trilateral city-states. You're not trying to figure out where the roots are so you can see where they branch out. You can't follow any of this because you don't make any sense. You're just squawking about something you were spoon-fed and reciting a narrative. That's how people operate. They react. They don't band together, they don't organize, and they sure as shit don't execute a thoughtful plan. Now keep in mind, if you were to do any of those things I just said, you would not do it online. You would not do it in a social setting on the DARPA internet. You would not do it in a digital medium. And if you're financing any of that, you would use cash, just to be clear. Everything is being tracked. Everything. And it's getting worse and worse because the goal is control. The end goal, if you guys don't understand this, is to merge man with machine. And you hear the jargon, you see the propaganda. If you've ever heard of The Matrix from 1999, that's why you're familiar with the Matrix movie. It's the only reason. And no one understands what the Matrix movie actually taught people, because there's lesser magic in that movie I've never heard come up. There's something absolutely amazing in the first Matrix, technically, and it's echoed in all three. In other words, there's a trilogy that teaches you something that you were not supposed to know, and no one that I've ever met who watched it understands what the fuck that is, because they all assume that they live in the Matrix. They took the most superficial fucking thing from that, popular film, which was well-financed and well-circulated, and did fuck all with it, instead of using their brains. That should terrify you. Another example that I complain about having to do with real life is an act of greater magic, which is a blood sacrifice. The month is technically September. It's technically the 7th month, hence sept or hept, denoting 7, not 9. But our masters understand these things and they pop jokes because they're laughing at us. So you got 9/11 or 7/11. You've probably heard of a 7/11 before because our masters are fucking laughing at us. I've never met somebody who understands what 9/11 symbolically represents. And it's one of the many things I could teach you. The wildest part is, technically it's connected to what I said having to do with the Matrix. And no, I'm not talking about, what's his name in the film? I can't remember Neo's, layman common name. I can't remember. It doesn't matter anyway. John, or it's kind of like a Fight Club with the Joes and the Jacks and the Johns. No, I'm not talking about his passport and the fact that it expires on 9/11. September 9/11 or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. And you guys probably can't answer this bad question that I posed. Just like most of you would probably buy into what this kid is shopping around. Which is why 99,000 people have seen his post. 16,000 have fucking bookmarked it, including myself, so it didn't disappear. Because that's another divisive tactic currently being employed to do away with attention spans, etc., etc. You click away from it, it disappears. You just keep scrolling. You digest the latest content. I mean, propaganda. You don't try to find it again. You don't memorize, the bold lion. You don't plug that in, sure as shit, because you're not invested. You're not involved. You're just going to find some other sensational shit to fucking latch onto and react to. That's how things work, unfortunately. Because our masters got us through convenience and they're dumbing people down. They're doing away with attention spans and any and all critical thinking skills whatsoever. A lot of times I'll complain, if your life depended on it, you couldn't connect the fucking dots. I guarantee it. I've asked a number of questions online. Most of the time people don't answer. They don't even try. They don't attempt the question. And those out there who did, most people who tried to appease me and answer some of my test questions, they did so out of the gates. They just reacted. They plucked something out of the fucking ether and threw it at me. Really, they pulled something out of their asshole. And it was just as good. Stunk like shit, looked like shit. It was shit. But I wasn't dumb enough to taste it. I can't spit that out, but I was thinking about Cheech and Chong. If you know what I'm talking about. Either way, what the fuck do I know? This guy's misleading people. Why would I say that? Because he's flying the fucking wartime flag of the fucking corporation. The bottom of the trilateral city-states, which represents the military-industrial complex, which is the military might behind the trilateral city-states. That's what he's promoting. You could think of it as subliminal imagery.
Passed a bill higher quality.
Because it is. It's symbolism. It's symbolic. How many people out there fly that shit? They don't think about that shit. They never challenge that shit. That shit's been normalized. So that's just how it is. And if you challenge them, they're going to complain at you and they're going to rattle off paradigms. They're going to rattle off cookie cutter canned responses. They're not going to fucking think about what you had to say because people can't connect the dots. They're going to whine at you to try to justify what most people repeat. In other words, these people are the problem. They're marching in lockstep. They're the angry villagers at the door. You could think of them as the agents in the Matrix, because that's exactly what that fucking movie was telling you about. And really, I prefer the angry villagers at the door, because simulation theory, the holographic universe, and the multiverse of adult fairy tale garbage is all in place to pave the way for a one-world religion. None of that shit fucking reflects reality, because quantum physics, quarks, photons, gravitons, black holes, the list goes on. These are all theories. These are all propaganda campaigns, and most people haven't figured that much out. In other words, these adult fairy tales most people believe in because they were well-financed, well-circulated, and normalized are dog shit. 8 pounds of dog shit in a 2-pound bag, and most people are gullible as the day is long, and they circulate it. They promote it. They perpetuate it. How else do I need to say it? And I probably lost you because this was 17 minutes long. TikTok won't let me post this, I bet you. I'm going to leave it on YouTube on probably 2 different channels. And I'll probably get 2 views, maybe 3, because I'm going to test the audio and the video. Or the visuals. It shouldn't be this hard. None of this is how it should be. What do I usually say? This isn't how things should be, but this is how things are. And it's because you and I are surrounded by fucking retards. That's why things are bad. Pull your head out of your ass. I'm trying to help you.